Hello and welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders. This is a show where I speak with the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by the fantastic Marc McKenna-Coles. Now, Marc is a global diversity, inclusion and wellbeing lead at present for Lloyd's of London. He's leading and driving the diversity and inclusion and belonging agenda and has had a wealth of international experience, including some of the top highlights, such as developing and leading an industry-wide diversity and inclusion festival, the Dive-In Festival, which I'm sure many of you have heard of before. Everything from designing and implementing new diversity inclusion policies through to running diversity and inclusion global strategy. He has just announced that he will be leaving Lloyd's of London and taking up an exciting new role, which is diversity, inclusion, and belonging lead for the UK and EMEA at Spotify, a brand that we all know and love. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Thank you. Well, I tell you, if I ever need a CV in reality, I'm just going to get you to come along and just read it out because you've just made me sound fabulous. So thank you. I do appreciate that. And it's a pleasure to be part of this today as well.
Thanks so much, Marc. And well, you've done all the hard work. For me, it's really just making sure I bring to the forefront some of those key pieces. I know that there's plenty more. So let's move on to talking about you and how you came to be where you are today for some of our listeners who perhaps don't know you as well as I do.
Yeah, so a bit of a journey. So I have a theatre degree. Obviously, that helps in insurance industry, as you can tell. So I went for my theatre degree. I worked for Disney. You would never have guessed in my office that I had ever worked for Disney. So I worked for Disney Stores here in the UK, management, and then I also had the opportunity to move abroad for a period of time and work for Disney Cruise Lines. So I did that in total overall with stores and ship for around 10 years. Then I sort of had the opportunity to sort of move into financial services, worked for what is now known as NatWest Group, working in branch banking, and then having various opportunities there, and then having a great opportunity. And there is a fantastic person out there, Marjorie Strachan, who was my manager in the D&I space at RBS, well, was RBS Group at the time, who took a bit of a gamble on me, you know, someone that hadn't had experience in the D&I space, and really helped me grow in that. And had a great opportunity, did that for nearly 4 years. And then moved into Lloyd's of London, working with the wonderful and amazing Pauline Miller, who many of you probably are watching this will know Pauline, an absolute pleasure and someone that I look up to on a daily basis with the work that she does, especially around culture, especially for the insurance market. And probably one of the areas that have made me make me hesitate when I was offered a new role outside of Lloyd's, you know, moving away from working with Pauline. But as we know in the D&I space, we don't ever lose contact. It's a great opportunity. So for me, you know, moving into Spotify, I've already sort of seen and had contact with the amazing team there as well. I know that there is going to be some great opportunities. So it's a really sort of a bit of a diverse journey, but for me, I think that's how it's helped me grow and boost my knowledge in the D&I space. You know, I've not got a HR background, and for me, I think that has a benefit because it means that I don't necessarily see the work that I do sitting in HR. I see it as a organizational piece. And we know that that's what a lot of organizations are trying to move towards, that moving it from a HR project to what the organization should be doing.
Wow, there's some really interesting points in there, Marc. Thank you so much for sharing. And I absolutely concur. This is not an HR initiative. It is a board-wide initiative and a strategic priority. Like you, I love Pauline, absolutely fantastic individual. And I must say, for those who are listening on Spotify, and we do love Spotify because obviously the podcasts go out on Spotify, who may not be watching the video version of this, Marc has got the most fabulous background. It makes me smile every time I see you, Marc, because you've got all of these wonderful colours, an array of statues. You've got Mickey Mouse there in the background, and I think
Yeah,
it's
I've got
just
Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. I've got, yeah, Mrs. Potts as a teapot. It's a real working teapot as well. So yes, she often likes to make her tea, but we often don't try the grey stuff, even though it is delicious. But yeah, not to quote a line from a particular song, but anyway, yes. So yeah, no, it's quite a diverse. This is my room. This is my office that I can sort of bring and celebrate me.
And what wouldn't put a smile on your face having a look at that office? Honestly, Marc, I love it. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of talking about subjects that you and I are both incredibly passionate about, I know that we're going to be speaking a lot about intersectionality. I must just pick up on one piece that you said earlier in your introduction, which I thought was really nice and very humble, where you said one of your former leaders had taken the chance on you and given you this opportunity. And I always find it remarkable when those that have had such experience, will be, humble and modest, which I think is so important, especially in today's modern world. But I also think it's important to mention that those in diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and those who are most successful at what they do, don't necessarily have had to have come from that very, very specific background, because there is that lived experience. And I know we'll talk more about the lived experience of your personal background, and also, that of many different areas of intersectionality. But there is no better way than to truly learn and look through the lens of another. Surely, is there, than actually having that real kind of grounded, direct and personal experience in which and whatever avenue it is of diversity.
Absolutely, and for me, as a gay man, obviously there are certain experiences I have there. But even working for a cruise line, and especially Disney Cruise Line, who I did work for, working with a large array of different nationalities, people from various backgrounds, religions, etc., really sort of gave me a true insight into various things. Working with, for example, and it always comes to mind, is I had two ladies that I worked with were from Japan, and there were particular ways that I could reward and recognize their work that was very different from someone that was from the UK or from Europe, because it was just the way. And for me, that was a real learning curve, and for me, that's how I will try and have done bring those sort of experiences and differences into the work that I do. And it's ever exploring, the work around ethnicity, and we know that that's been ever heightened in 2020 off the back of some quite horrendous activities that have not only happened in 2020, but have happened in decades before, but it's really come to light in 2020. And for me, it's all about being an education. I didn't know huge amounts about certain elements of race. I haven't had to experience that kind of discrimination. But what I've done is I've learned from people, I've learned from reading, I've learned from all of that. And I think that's important, that D&I people out there don't know everything. Organizations are not perfect. There are many organizations out there that are on a really good journey, some on a very early part of their journey, some on a late part of their journey, but we don't know everything. And that the knowledge comes from that journey. And, Marjorie, when she gave me that opportunity back at RBS, she knew from the conversations that we had, and we've had these conversations later on, that she knew that I wanted to learn that journey. I wanted to be part of that. And so to bring someone from the business, to bring that expertise in and then explore that into a D&I world was a really, for me, humbling, because she, and we're still very good friends, and we do keep in contact on a regular basis. And she's fantastic at what she does. A bit of a force to be reckoned with sometimes, but and I think that's what, when we look at the D&I world, and if I look at job specs for diversity and inclusion roles, I think organizations need to be mindful that there isn't really a qualification for D&I. You don't really go to university to learn to be a D&I practitioner. I don't think you really can learn to be a D&I practitioner. It comes through passion. A lot of the time you learn a job, and in D&I you have to be passionate. So unless you are passionate, you are not going to be successful. You might be successful in certain aspects, but I don't think overall you will get the full package from it.
hmm It is that lived experience. And I know that you and I are both real fans of reading, whether it be white papers and literature and everything like that. However, it is not purely a textbook
No,
experience. As you
no.
say, it is getting in there down and dirty and really understanding and trying as much as we possibly can to look through the lens of another. When you describe the experience of getting to know the Japanese ladies and their culture and things like that, some things you feel without
Mm,
sounding too cheesy or trite there, but some things are really about the feelings, the culture, the human to human understanding. And as you say, none of us can know everything. I do not have the lived LGBTQ plus experience. I don't have the Black lived experience. How could
mm.
I possibly know without taking the moment, to obviously learn and speak with people to find out more about that? But do have the East Asian experience and that of, say, being adopted and suffering with mental health issues and so I guess I wonder, as we kind of dive deep into talking about what what you have seen and observed, I guess, from the power of intersectionality, whether you can talk to me a little bit about, for those perhaps who don't know what intersectionality really is, and why we should be looking much further beyond just the realms of LGBTQ plus, or
Okay.
just race, or just socioeconomic background, for example.
Yeah, and well, it's layers. It's the layers that make us who we are. We all have those intersectional elements. We can still criticize, unfortunately, the white, middle class, middle-aged man, but actually there are going to be many, many different layers involved. I'm white, I'm middle class, I'm middle-aged, I'm 43 now. But I'm gay, and yes, I wear glasses when I need to. So I have sight issues sometimes, and there might be certain other aspects of me that might be very different. And it is about bringing and making sure that things like making sure reasonable adjustments are in tow for everyone. Disability specifically is a really hard thing for people to talk about, especially if they're in a very dominating industry. Disability, oh, that's a weakness. Well, actually, the only weakness is when you're not being supported by it, and sometimes you have to talk about it to get supported. However, organizations need to realize that not everyone is at first willing to talk about it. I mean, we're at Lloyd's really, really good, very, very simple. But when we went over to our laptops 2 years ago, they automatically have the read and write software already in there for everyone's laptop. Now, we don't know who needs to use it. Some people will, some people won't. We're not going to monitor who's going to use it, but we've allowed that functionality in there as well. And I think that's a really important element. But when we also talk about intersectionality, maybe let's think about a very sort of easy scenario when we talk about the journey around females. Now, we know that women have the opportunities for women within business hasn't been as good as it could be. It's got better. I'm not saying it's brilliant, but it's got better. But then you add in those extra layers of people that are from the Black community as well, and those additional discriminations that happen in the workplace. So and it's got to think about that. We've got to address all of those. We've spoken previously around the fact that there is a great movement of seeing senior females within organizations. Fantastic, because you know what? They are the absolutely right talent. That talent's always been there. There's been great senior females. There's been great females for decades, years, centuries. Unfortunately, the talent wasn't tapped into. But then what we're seeing quite a high proportion of those females at senior level now are from a white background. And the problem is with that is that, are we addressing the true nature of talent?
I think that's a really good point that you make there, Mark, and such a fascinating one. And, almost the way that you describe this is, diversity, inclusion, belonging. It is an evolution. It is a constantly evolving subject matter, not only when it comes to, some of the more obvious pieces, LGBT becomes LGBTQ plus etc. But when you mention specifically females here, is it right for us to be saying, hey, we're definitely an inclusive organization here, if actually all of the women who are at those top levels of management are white females. And
Yeah.
again, neither of us here wish to cause any kind of offense, but we do like to tackle challenging subjects. Don't want women who are white listening in thinking, hang on a minute here, this is then, anti-white women. It is not.
Not at all.
But what it is saying, actually looking at the additional layers, as you put it, which is a wonderful way to describe intersectionality. I often say, the facets, but layers is really great, because it's that layering on top of
I'm peeling of the onion. I'm peeling of those. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so how do we look at those additional, layers on top of, gender, which could be LGBTQ plus, and then, add on top of that, a woman who has come from from a Black, Asian, minority ethnic background. Well, already, the statistics are saying that the chance of actually getting there is so much smaller than it would be for someone who is of a white background.
Absolutely. And I think, it is, and that's where inclusion comes into play. It's about that inclusive mindset, and making sure that, as an organization, that you bring that as part of the conversation, but threaded through everything. I'm very much, and I use this analogy a lot, and Pauline finds it quite funny when I've used this analogy previously. But I've seen D&I, and especially inclusion, as a bit of a bolt-on to what an organization does. And we know that bolts rust, and so they tend to fall off. But for me, it's about how you then bring a golden thread to what an organization does. And we know that bolts rust, and so they tend to fall off. But for me, it's about how you then bring a golden thread through everything that you do. So something that a great colleague of mine at RBS used to say, he worked on the disability agenda, and he used to talk about the disability speed bump. And that was, whenever you're considering something new or considering a piece of work, pull in that disability speed bump to make sure that actually, is it fit for purpose for a variety of disabilities? Now, you can actually take that wider and think about, are you putting in an inclusive speed bump? Is this actually going to be as inclusive to all as you possibly can? And I think, when we talk about the race agenda at the moment, and I hate, it's probably an awful thing to say agenda, because it just sounds like a tick box on a list, but it's not. It's about race, and it's about ethnicity.
Completely.
And I think, there are organizations out there that are now publicly talking about being anti-racist. Now, fantastic. And I applaud them for that there. But what I want to see evidence of in those organizations is that if an organization is saying they're anti-racist, that means also that every person that works for that organization is along the same lines. And I don't think we are fully there yet. I think, there is a big gesture out there, but I think organizations need to be mindful that they really need to tackle internally and make sure that everyone is following what that means to its fullest extreme. And I think, there is a journey involved. I think there should be an ambition to be fully anti-racist as an organization. And until you see the true evidence that an organization is really at the hardcore of that, I think they need to be mindful that, because what will happen, and we know this, especially people will test that. An organization says, I'm anti-racist, and all of a sudden something happens within that organization. It could be a pocket of people, it could be an individual, and something is completely in opposite to what they're saying, and then that will just explode. So I think organizations need to make sure that they are truly involving all of their people in an organization as well.
Mm-hmm. I also commend leaders, and in particular CEOs. We've seen recently Steve Morel's from the Co-op standing outside the Sainsbury's headquarters,
Yep.
Saying they absolutely are anti-racist. And I think, big, well, not big. I do think they are actually big and brave gestures. To do something like that should absolutely be commended, because I think it's putting a line in the sand and saying, hey, we do not tolerate this. But as you allude to there, I think, can everyone be feeling exactly the same thing? And how can those, in particular, those who are at, the grassroots level or middle management, also feel empowered enough that is, that is absolutely the case. Maybe they're seeing very different things at the grassroots level or on the shop floor as what is seen up at that management level. And, as you say, it's, we're never going to get to the point where we are necessarily anti-racist enough until it is eradicated completely. And without sounding too pessimistic here, I question whether there will ever come that point where we don't need to constantly keep a foot on this gas. But, I wonder from some of the experiences that you've had, what have been, I guess some of the best examples of that? Because I think, in a perfect world, every single person within the organization is anti-racist, lives, breathes, and sleeps that, and it's disseminated down from the top. But we also know, that there is sometimes disparity between what is said at exec level and, arguably lip service in inverted commas versus what actually truly happens in the depths of the business.
So I think there are various levels in that, and I don't think anyone out there has got it perfect, be it through gender, race, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity. But I think, what I have seen in evidence of organizations, and I'm starting to see a lot of this starting to build in the insurance market, is referring back to that golden thread, where what they're trying to do is not to highlight it as diversity and inclusion, but actually what we actually do as a business. And I think the work that is currently in tow around culture and developing a true inclusive culture, especially in the insurance market, it's in its early stages. So we can't go there and say it's amazing and it's perfect and it's brilliant. But what it is amazing piece of work for the insurance market to move into that direction. And I think, having spoken to all levels of different organizations in the insurance market, there is so much will and energy behind it. I have spoken to people that probably would have been an example of someone that probably wouldn't necessarily have spoken about diversity and inclusion and belonging in the past. Not trying to I'm not going to describe who those sort of people are, but they're now having those conversations, and they're having those conversations because they see it as absolutely right for their people, but absolutely they're seeing it's right for their business. And I think when people start seeing those two elements together, when it's right for your business and right for your people, then that's when the journey is more successful. I do think sometimes when people see it just right for the business and you leave your people behind, unfortunately, these are the people that are driving the cogs to get your business to where it should be. And so you need to have both working in parallel and in hand. And I think it's really, really important that seeing that. So I think, the work on culture within the insurance market is a true elevation. If I look at the Dive In Festival, which you alluded to earlier on, this year we had 30,000 people globally attend our events. If I compare that to 2019, that was 10,000 people. So yes, we were completely virtual, so that gave more opportunity for people to attend. But 70% of people that attended this year's Dive In had never attended Dive In before, and it's been running for 6 years. So you can see that, and if I look at the levels of those people that attended, they are from across the board. There isn't a particular pocket of levels that are attending. So there are senior execs, there are grassroots, all in attendance to those events. And I think that's that is the momentum that's needed. 144 events across 35 countries, topics, my God, the topics that were being discussed in certain countries that 2-3 years ago would never be discussed. There was a whole seminar on sexual orientation in India, on the LGB topic as well. Yes, gender identity is a little bit different in India, and we know that the laws have changed around sexual orientation in India in the last couple of years, but to have a whole section on that as well. And I actually went in and listened to the event that took place in Nigeria. It was a continuation of last year, and it was talking about gender diversity in Nigeria, which is still a hot topic. But what I was so proud of is that that particular event made it onto their version of Good Morning Britain. You know, the person who was facilitating is actually a presenter on there and brought the speakers onto there to talk about the dive in and diversity and inclusion in Nigeria. And I just think, you know, I'd love to have been on Good Morning Britain, but I don't think I would have handled Piers Morgan so well. But
Watch this space.
watch this space. You never know. But I think, to have that conversation being brought to the forefront in countries and in locations where the conversation hasn't been as good, I think is a phenomenal move. And it's not just people doing it for the sake of doing it. They're doing it because they know it will make a huge difference to not only their organization, but to their people as well.
Wow, what an answer. And coming back to a couple of pieces that you said there, I'm going to be probably re-quoting you talking about this golden thread, because I often say, it's about interweaving throughout the fabric of everything that we do. But the golden thread is just a beautiful, beautiful way to kind of describe what we're doing here, which is ultimately, as I'm hearing from you, it is culture. It is seeing diversity, inclusion, belonging, equality, culture ultimately as a strategic priority to the business. No longer is it a nice to have or something that we will do in addition, but it is a strategic priority. And, what a success story hearing about the Dive In Festival, which I know you and Pauline obviously worked incredibly hard on, were instrumental in that. But it's great to hear that there are so many new allies. Saying to someone the other day, and I could have talked to them about diversity and inclusion until the cows come home, but as absolute believers, how much can we do by preaching to the converted, quote unquote, I guess. This is about making everyone feel truly welcome. And it is about everyone seeing diversity and inclusion as something which also relates to them, as you describe all of the different layers of the onion and all of those different powerful parts of intersectionality. But to hear how many on that scale of new people coming in who hadn't attended a D&I event, that is just phenomenal. Just phenomenal, because there still are people that think, oh, diversity and inclusion, how much does that really relate to me? Or and I hear a lot of people saying, is D more important or is I more important? I'd be curious to hear what you think, actually. I mean, my take is that both are as important as each other. I know a lot of people prefer inclusion before diversity, but I think you just got to have both in equal measure wherever you possibly can.
You have to have it in equal measure, but I do kind of agree that we do need to get the I right to increase and highlight the D, because if you've got an inclusive organization, if you've got an inclusive mindset, if you've got an inclusive environment, then that diverse talent that you're driving will hopefully become more attracted to you as an organization or as an industry as well. You can be the great technology organizations, but actually once you get in there, are you going to be respected for all of your ideas? Sometimes those ideas are going to be wacky. Some of those ideas are going to be, but the all wacky ideas, I mean, I've come up with some crazy ideas. All wacky ideas will have some good from them. You might have to be reined in a little bit, or you might need to slightly readjust your mindset. But actually, let's think about history, think about wacky ideas that have come about. Who thought about that we could have a phone in our hand that we could access everything? Steve Jobs had wacky ideas when it came to Apple. You think about Microsoft, you think about all various other organizations that have come up with wacky ideas, and look where we are now. It's making a real shift and a difference. And I think, we need to listen to those differences. We need to listen to those, but we need to have those people in so we can hear them. And I think that's what we need to start seeing.
Absolutely. And it's fine to positively challenge as well. And I love that you and I positively challenge each other with, should it be the I before the D, and should it be the D before the I? I absolutely get and appreciate and understand the I before the D rationale. And I guess my thoughts are, in a perfect world, that would be the case. And I think once the organization is more welcoming, is more likely to attract different types of people. But I also have seen in the past it used, dare I say, as an excuse. Oh, well, inclusion is more important to us, therefore, actually, we don't necessarily, or what they're saying, I read between the lines, is we don't necessarily need diversity, which again, I'm sure there'll be people listening in thinking, I challenge her on that. And, I like positive challenges to that, but making sure that there is no excuses, in particular after this year, to not actually address this as something of importance. Are we an inclusive organization if all of our senior females, for example, none of them come from an ethnic minority background or have other traits of visible and invisible diversity?
Yeah, and have we exhausted the talent pool? Because I truly don't believe that we have exhausted the talent pool when we say, oh, well, no, there's no one else out there that can do that role. Really? Really? I really doubt that there is no one else out there. And I think what the insurance industry is moving towards is really exploring people from other industries, and I think that's amazing. I came from banking. I'm still within the financial services, but I'm starting to see, especially in the digital space, we're seeing people coming from a wide variety of organizations that want to come into the insurance market to bring that expertise to really develop that. I mean, the chief digital officer for Lloyd's of London is Lou Smith, who I used to work with at RBS, but she's got a wide breadth of expertise within the digital space, and she's phenomenal. She is a force to be reckoned with. But I actually love her way, her passion. She loves that. She does a lot in Scotland for the Scottish government around sort of fintech and things like that. And I think it's fantastic opportunity. And I think people like Lou and others that are coming from other outside of the insurance market to really bring in that key development. There are very few, I would say, and someone can shoot me down in flames, I think there are very few roles within many industries, probably not necessarily in the medical industry, but very few, where you have to be a complete expert or you have had to have trained for years to really do the roles. Maybe in the legal sector a little bit, but if I think about the insurance industry, I think there are very few roles where you need to have that specific insurance knowledge to actually be successful. I know people will hate me from saying that, but I truly believe.
Well, I am with you, and I'm happy to back and stand by that, because, and again, actually, I could do quite easily with you another whole podcast on diversity of sector. I know we both have, kind of talent backgrounds and things like that. And I have, and the amount of times I hear, oh, but, it's just not the right fit. They won't understand the sector, things like that. I mean, you were a product of moving from a different sector to a different sector now with Spotify. And those have been some of the, I mean, I see to a small degree here that people may deem, or organizations may deem it a slight risk. But hey, if we're not going to take a risk right now in the current environment in which we are in, what on earth will we ever do? And you see industries and certain sectors having a really tough time because of the lack of innovation. One way to really drive that forward is by looking at a wider talent pool and not just looking on our doorstep. Because as you say, when I was saying yes and yes very loudly, is looking at people who work for direct competitors and presuming they'll always be the best people to do the job. No, there's so many great other people out there if we just broaden the horizons. But anyhow, I know I'm here preaching to the converted completely yet again, and I'm conscious of timing, Marc, because I could chit chat to you about this forever, but let's make a note, talk about diversity of sector and mindset, because that is absolutely.
Well, you know where I'm going to be in the future.
Well,
so
I do indeed. And I'm a fan of Spotify, and I'm not just saying that. Can obviously get this podcast on Spotify. But anyway,
I'm not going to go there on that one. There we go.
Before we run out of time, let's dive into a quick lightning round. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. This will be challenging for both of us. 30 seconds to answer each one. So
okay. Go on then.
Firstly, if you could go back in time and speak to the young Marc before perhaps he embarked on that diversity and inclusion journey, and you wanted to give them some advice, or indeed it's someone else who's in a similar position, perhaps they've even got some personal challenges, whether they've
Yeah.
not come out yet, or they don't know what they want to do yet, what advice would you give to your younger self or someone in a similar position?
So two bits of advice really quickly, I'm doing 30 seconds, is one, I know I probably should have come out a lot sooner than I did. I came out when I was 23, and I think there would have been a slight shift in my own mental well-being if I'd come out a lot sooner, but that the journey was the journey. But second of all, I don't think I would change my career journey whatsoever. I could say that some of my roles were a bit all over the place, but actually my career journey has helped me every step of the way. So I think, I would not change that, but I think, yeah, coming out a lot earlier for me personally probably would have been slightly better for my own sort of mental well-being. But as I know, everyone's coming out journey is very different from themselves.
Secret to success?
Make sure you dig those 6-inch heels in every time. And I have a pair of 6-inch heels that are obviously virtually, I don't really have 6-inch heels, but stick them in and make sure that you stick to your guns when you are, but also be flexible. Okay. You might have an opinion that you feel is so strong, but actually you've also got to reflect. I look like I'm a person that will run in at things half-hearted, full blast or whatever, but actually I do take time to reflect. So it's stick to your guns, listen and reflect.
Great answer. And how about the biggest inspirations, or it could be an inspirational quote, or someone that you've come across on life's path, personally or professionally?
Yeah, so I think going far back, my drama teacher at school, who I was got very good friends with. I used to babysit his children. He was very much someone that I would look up to, listen to the way he was. He would give me opportunity. It was the first time I performed on a more professional stage. I performed at the Ashcroft Theatre in Croydon because of him. It was about his opportunity, giving that opportunity to others. And I think that's a true inspiration for me. And John Harris Rees, wherever you are out there, you were a true inspiration to me as a secondary school teacher in my days of wanting to be a thespian. And that's why I went on to do my theatre degree, which then changed my direction to where I am now.
Oh, I love it. It's amazing the impact that memories and people can have in our formative years. And, with that, I will summarize some of the incredible things that we've covered, which there's been so many, Marc,
I
on
know we went
the
on a bit of a
podcast.
journey, didn't
I
we?
know it's an evolution. Yeah, absolutely. But I think some of the things that really stood out to me were the absolute importance of kind of creating these safe places that enable people to speak out. We obviously debated in a positive way, inclusion and diversity and which before which. But ultimately, if we have these inclusive spaces where people feel safe enough to actually be themselves, we can create better working environments. We also covered, some of the different facets to intersectionality, or as you say, the layers, which I love. Is literally like a peeling of an onion, as you said, and looking at all of these different rich layers and what they actually mean, not just looking at them in their individualities, but what would happen if you looked at, say, gender and led on top of that LGBTQ plus, and then on top of that race and ethnicity. And often that picture almost can become quite bleak, but at the same time we can also be aware of these differences, of these different challenges, and ultimately make a change. And then finally, I just really love the golden thread that interweaves throughout everything that we do as a business, and throughout ultimately the business culture. Diversity and inclusion and belonging, as we've heard today, is absolutely a strategic priority. Culture is a strategic priority more now than ever before in the year and the world that we are living in right now. And so really harnessing how also of allies and individuals, that you've mentioned, willing to send that lift back down, because actually the impact that can be made may not be felt immediately, but it can surely be felt in many, many years to come. And that's what it's about. This is about a long-term journey and a long-term evolution. So, Marc, thank you ever so much for
No,
joining
thank you.
today. It's been fantastic to have you on the show. My name is Leila Mackenzie-Dallas, and you've been listening to the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast today with Marc McKenna-Coles. You can download the podcast free or subscribe via Apple or Spotify, any of your favorite podcast apps, or you can go direct to our website and you'll be able to check out all of the show notes there as well if you missed any of the key learning points. Visit us at www.dialglobal.org/podcast, and we will look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.